So welcome. Those of you who have had class with me before know that at least at the beginning of the semester, when there's still time, one of the things I'd like to do is give you a summary of what's occurred during the week and then give you an introduction into what to expect for week two. And today begins our second week in the class, so I thought it would be the appropriate time to post this. And so, of course, it being the first week, there's not that much for me to discuss. But so thank you for submitting your surveys and your introductions. I really enjoyed reading about what you guys are reading right now. If you haven't taken the chance to read over some of your classmates' introductions, please do so. I did see some responses. If you got an email from me saying that I hadn't received your survey, usually the most common reason is that somebody didn't hit the submit, you did not hit the submit button after you finished the survey. And again, that information is, a lot of it is just contact information. I don't anticipate calling you, but if I've emailed you because you've missed an assignment and I haven't heard back, I might call to check in. And sometimes ELC goes down and I need to reach you guys, and so sending you a text might be simpler. I don't anticipate that happening, but I like to be prepared. As far as your KWL goes, I'm sure that you guys have all used KWLs in the past, and as a teacher, I've used them also. And I've used them with varying degrees of success, and one of the things that I found most helpful was when you're talking about what do you want to know, that's when students tend to blank. They don't really want to know anything about your topic if they're feeling ornery that day, or they just have so many things that they might be curious about, it's hard to even narrow it down. But I think you've all walked into a class and the teacher said, "Well, what do you want to know?" And you're like, I don't know. We haven't even started talking yet." And so I find that if you've got your table here and you have some what do you knows, then repeating those back to the class and then saying, "Well, what do you want to know about that?" Or what questions come up for you when you read this particular sentence, then that translates over into what do you want to knows. So I was curious for you, what made it difficult for you? What did you try to go straight across the rows? So connecting your what do you want to know to your what do you knows, and how did that work for you? If you didn't do that, do you think that that would have been helpful for you? If this had been in your classroom, what would you have done differently? Would you have rephrased the question? Would you have made it broader or more direct? Would you have drawn arrows? What do you think would have made that activity a better activity for you? And then did it makes you think, pardon the grammar mistake there, did it make you think? Did it make you consider what you might be learning in the class? There, in other words, was it a good pre introductory activity? If you didn't think so, there's a chance that your class might not think so. And so there's just things I want you to think about. And then I'd like to talk to you a minute about your class assignment. So when we talked about your seventh grade class, the assignment, for you guys, your class strengths, not the seventh grade class, a lot of you discussed grouping the students, either based on abilities or interests or behaviors. A lot of you brought up the student interests, which was great. It's good to think about that, especially in a reading class. And a lot of you have started planning ahead. Oh, I might do this if this kind of activity were to occur, this is how I might handle it, which is fabulous. And then, so what I was looking for is, of course, for you to have a real reason to go through that class and to look at it and start to think about if you have a class like this, what are your challenges and what kinds of additional information will you need? Some of you asked about making up information. You can definitely make up information. You can change the seating around, although you'd have to really play with PDF to do so. Um, so you can build on this material. I don't want you to make Rusty a totally different person. But if you want to say that he made progress or he made a team and therefore you're seeing these behaviors, those are natural things that would occur in a classroom and you're welcome to do so. As far as room to grow for the class as a whole, please reference what you're reading often. Many of you referenced the article, and I recognize that this is the first week and you really didn't read that much, but so there's no you didn't do this well. It's just moving forward. Part of the rubric is referencing the text and bringing out quotes from the text, and so I want to make sure that I mention that that is expected. And make sure that you are giving substantive comments, saying that the class might be difficult doesn't really tell me much. And so if you are talking about a particular strategy and how to use it, or an idea you have, I want you to give me details so that I understand where you're coming from. If we find that the 300 to 500 or 350 to 500 word limit is not enough text, we can bump that up. If you guys need more space, we can bump that up. I like to have a word limit or guideline because I don't want 100 word posts and I don't want 2,000 word posts. And so I thought about 500 words would be acceptable for you, but if we need 750, then let me know and we'll move it up. And then one of the things that you guys all commented about was the diversity and uniqueness of the class. And so I was curious, is this unexpected for you? Would you not expect to find this level of diversity in a class if you're working in an inclusion classroom? Now, obviously, if you're working in a resource room, you might have students who are targeted with a specific need in that class. That's why they're in the resource room. But if in a general ed classroom, and I can just tell you based on my middle school experience, that was a very typical class. That is something I would have walked into on a regular basis, and more so. And so I was surprised, I guess not that you commented on it, but that it seemed possibly surprising to you. And that could have just been me interpreting your comments as well, because granted, I'm reading your posts, and after reading the same thing numerous times, you start to skim and then make assumptions. So just keep that in mind, or feel free to respond to me through an email if you'd like. So I said these, your due dates are always going to be Sundays by midnight for your discussion posts and Tuesdays by midnight for your responses. If I mess up in the assignment table, feel free to ask me. I've tried to put the next couple of weeks in the calendar, and I'm going to go through and add the rest. But unless there's something really strange, where a week splits or a week ends early because it's the end of the school semester, Sundays and Tuesdays. If I don't have anything from you by Sunday by midnight, it's going to be considered late. And the same with Tuesday by midnight. For week 2, just some things to keep in mind. You've got a module. You've got an information sheet in the module that tells you what to read and what your goals are. But because this is the second week of class, I want to make sure that I'm verbalizing this for you. You're reading chapters 2 and 3 and the picture article. The picture article is a description of a motivation to read summary. You don't have to read every single question and the responses, but skimming the questions and getting idea of things that people ask to learn about students' motivation to read, or investigating other surveys that are out there and what they learned from these surveys and how students consider reading. For instance, a student might say that they hate to read, but also might put that they go home and read half an hour every day. And so when they say they hate to read, they're thinking maybe of school reading, and yet they go home and read a graphic novel every day because they love graphic novels, but they don't consider that reading because schools don't consider that reading. And so that this particular article, when I read it, really opened my eyes into how kids think about reading. And so that's why I included it. Um, there's a great chart on page 28 in the Beers book about assessing students' need. If you see, then do this, and you can find more information on it on these chapters. You also learn about dependent versus independent readers. I didn't mean to put motivation there. I'm not going to start over, however. And then I just wanted to mention before I conclude, using the term good reader and bad reader, think about that. I'm going to address it next week, but think about when you use these words, what you are saying, what the subtext is. And I'm not saying don't use them. I'm just saying think about how you use them or how you might use them and what students might gain from that. For your discussion post, you have 3 topics you could write about. Please do not write about all 3. You cannot do that with the kind of detail that I'm looking for. You're grouped by first name, and so if your first name falls under a certain letter, that's the group you're going to post in. It won't stay that way. We'll change it up, but that's what I did for the first week. Make sure that they're substantive, and you synthesize, you add quotes, and you're organized. Look at the rubric. And for your response to another student, provide a suggestion. What did the person you read miss or overlook, or maybe not touch on as much as you think that they could have, or maybe they didn't think about it, and you have this in your post, and then support it. And that's 150 to 200 words. As you get started, if you have any questions, please do feel free to email me and let me know. So far, you guys have been really good about that. And then I will start to talk about your book group, your book post project. I'm tired. Your book project where you come up with a list of 10 books that you might suggest to different students. We will discuss that I will discuss that next week. And I look forward to reading everybody else's posts for week 2. Take care. Bye-bye.